Well, on September 11th, 2001, I was backstage getting ready to do the show. And I had my daughter with me. She was 3 months old. It was our oldest son's first day of nursery school, so my husband was taking him to school. And the news was on in the makeup and hair room, like it always is. And suddenly they cut to this image of the World Trade Center, and it had a hole in it, and there were flames and fire. And they said, it appears that a plane has hit the World Trade Center. And so your mind just goes to pilot error, some sort of malfunction of equipment, and I don't think I realized it was such a large plane. I thought it was probably a small, small single engine, one pilot flying around and hit the building. I did not realize. Nobody could have really realized because your mind wasn't thinking that way. And it was interesting because Regis came downstairs, and I thought for sure we would be preempted everywhere because I knew that we were certainly preempted in New York, and our executive producer said, no, we're just preempted here, but we're going on with the show. And Regis said, can you believe what those monsters did? And I didn't really know, I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know what he was talking about because I was still thinking to myself that, but he somehow knew that it was sinister and I didn't. I really didn't think that there was anything sinister. I just thought it was tragic and awful and horrific. And you felt for those people that we would, once we came out on the air and started our show, we immediately told the audience, this is what's happening here in New York, and we showed them a live picture of what our news station was carrying. And I don't think I was prepared. The situation had gotten much worse by the time those helicopters had gotten downtown, and they were showing these images of people trapped and waving frantically out of buildings, and then one by one you could see clearly people jumping, and you think, this is the worst day ever that I've ever witnessed in my life. This is the most horrific. And that's when all of a sudden we saw another explosion. Just from the angle of our camera that we were looking at on the studio floor, we saw another explosion, but nobody really knew what it was. And I believe it was Julian, our stage manager, who said, it's the fuselage. Somebody had told him in his ear that it was the fuselage of the plane that blew up, but it didn't seem to, it seemed like it came from somewhere else. That's when we realized that there was a second plane. And that's when sort of everything went, really, everything just became white chaos, just like you could, it was like lightning everywhere. Well, I remember thinking that suddenly the job had taken a turn. There was a turn. So we were no longer supposed to be entertaining anybody. Suddenly it was getting informational. We were there to deliver breaking news until the news people of the local areas of the viewers at home could take over, is sort of what we were doing. And it was funny, I just kept repeating myself. I remember repeating myself because I really wanted to cry and scream. Because now when you go back and they show images, they've really sort of, they've cleaned up what you see on the news and the rebroadcast because people were so deeply traumatized and horrified, and children were terrified. And but I remember those live images, and I'll never forget them. I mean, it's just, it's in my mind forever. It was horrific, and so I just sort of went on autopilot and just started speaking about what we were seeing, what we were witnessing, what it appears to be, what early reports are saying it might be, And then eventually, in all of the markets, the news had taken over, and we walked off the set. And we went backstage, stunned. The audience was stunned. Everybody was stunned. And I remember going into the dressing room. Our first guest for the day was Joan Rivers, and she was sobbing. She was just sobbing. And we just stood around and watched all of this chaos unfolding before our eyes. And I remember my husband had taken our son to his first day of nursery school, and he walked to the studio to show me the pictures that he had taken. And that was the first time he saw the images, when he walked through the door, and I was standing there with the baby. And I remember all of us just being spellbound and horrified by what we were seeing, yet wanting to get out of the newsroom, because we were in a news building, and you think, if this is what it is, what it appears to be, if this is it, what's next? The news? What's next? So you wanted to leave, but you didn't want to be outside, but you didn't want to be inside. And I don't think we said goodbye to each other. We just sort of walked in different directions, and everybody it was like it was as if it was a studio of zombies. And people were behaving as if they were zombies. Then there were rumors flying everywhere. People were talking about they're going to bomb Central Park, and they're going to blow up this, and you would hear these things on the streets. And I remember coming home. I didn't know. I was sort of desperate. We went and got our son from nursery school, and he had been there all of 10 minutes, and I had our daughter, who was 3 months old, and we walked home, but didn't want to go into our building because it was a high-rise. But we didn't want to be outside because we had heard that they were going to bomb everything and everywhere, and we didn't know who they were. We didn't know what it was, but it was something really bad. And we started listening to the news, and planes were missing everywhere, and a plane had hit the Pentagon, and I just thought, what? And in my mind, I still thought there must be something wrong with the airport. There must be some sort of technological glitch. There must be a computer problem that is causing this, because the thought that human beings could do this to other human beings was beyond my comprehension. And then we walked up to the top of our building on the roof, and we looked downtown, and that's when we saw everything start to fall down. We saw the first building fall. It was such a bad day, really bad day. It's like coming back to work a week later was spellbinding to me, because our audience was very small. It was very intimate. People were not returning to the city at all. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of our audience was people that worked in the building. Some were just tourists from out of town that had been trapped here, that couldn't get out. And I remember watching Katie Couric and Diane Sawyer and a bunch of the female newscasters, and they had been on the air for a week straight. And I watched them, and I thought, I'm emotionally drained. I'm spent. I'm exhausted. I'm horrified. I'm terrified. I'm scared to death to be here. Yet they've been holding all of this down. They've been breaking this news and analyzing this news and been on the air for 24 hours, 48 hours. You would see them all. It was remarkable to watch. So I sort of said to myself, get yourself together and go out on the air and try to convey to people that it's okay to feel frightened, it's okay to feel depressed and sad, but it's also okay to feel like you're an American, you're proud of your country, that we have all pulled together and sort of bonded together in this grim hour of need.